Hello and welcome to Drunk on Tea. Today I'm continuing my series where I paint through the contents of the Warhammer Quest Darkwater set as quickly as possible, without sacrificing on the finished result, and this week I'm painting the Pox Wretches, these great looking zombie miniatures that are full of charm and little details. The first thing I've done is prime the models black and then applied a zenithal undercoat to the model, as I've done to all of the others. This will give me contrast to the mini and really bring out the effects of the speed paints I'm going to use to paint these quickly. First, with Crusader skin, I'm going to paint the skin. There's quite a lot of exposed skin on these models, so I'm catching it all with a layer of Crusader skin. I'm being careful to only get this over the skin and avoiding catching any other details, as it will be difficult to tidy up the undershading, although if you do make any mistakes, you can tidy back up with some white if needed. I'm catching the face, arms and legs of the model with Crusader skin. Some of the models also have flesh showing around the waist as well, so check all over the model and make sure you catch any exposed skin. With the skin painted, next I'm going to paint any wood. For this I'm using dark wood. And I'm painting the inside of the shield. This paint works really well, sinking into the recesses of the wood and bringing out the wood grain effect in a really nice fashion. As always, I'm being careful around all the other details and making sure I only paint the wooden areas. On the front of the shield, I'm being careful to avoid all of the details, including the small spikes that are on the shield, but making sure I coat all of the wood with some dark wood. And finally, I'm catching the handle to the weapon as well, with a layer of dark wood. With the wood painted, I'm going to move on to the fabric. Using Forest Sprite, I'm going to paint all of the clothing on the model. I'm carefully applying a layer of Forest Sprite all over the fabric. This colour has a really nice, slightly yellow-greenish colour, so it's ideal for painting Nurgle models and gives a really nice effect once it's dried. It's fabric that the undershading really shows through with, darkening down all of the recesses and shadows while adding a slight bit of extra brightness to the highlights and really bringing out the best of the speed paint. As always, I'm being really careful around all the other details of the model, but making sure I catch all of the fabric with a layer of Forest Sprite. With fabric painted, the model is already getting that Nurgle look. And now with Desolate Brown, I'm going to paint the straps. I'm painting the straps holding the shield onto the arm, being careful to avoid accidentally painting over the skin. I'm also catching the leather bag on the back of the model, as well as the belt going around his waist. The Desolate Brown has a kind of olive-like colour, which is great for these details, and adds that Nurgle look by looking old and grimy. I'm also catching the strapping on the leg of the model, making sure I apply a layer of Desolate Brown to any straps or strapping on the mini. Finally, I'm catching the strapping on the arm, but I'm avoiding painting the strapping on the weapon, as I'm going to paint this later. With the strapping painted, the model is really coming together. Now with Slaughter Red, I'm going to paint the strapping on the weapon. This red will add a bit of colour to the model, and where the model has the strapping on its arm, if I also painted the strapping on the weapon with Desolate Brown, the two areas would blend into each other. Because of that, I'm painting the strapping red to make it stand out, being careful to only paint the strapping on the weapon and nothing else. If you're enjoying the video, please press like. If you want more videos, press the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. And if you'd like to support the channel, please become a member by pressing the join button down below or joining me over on Patreon. With the red painted, there are just a few more details left to paint. With Skeleton Horde, I'm going to paint the horn on his head. Not all of the sculpts have this horn, so check out each model as you go to paint them and see if you need to include this step in your painting. With the horn painted, next I'm going to paint the boils on the skin. For this I'm using Murder Scene, and I'm carefully applying small spots of this paint to all of the boils. Some models have more than others, so check all over each one and pick out any boils with a small spot of Murder Scene. I really like this paint. It's a dark purplish red, and so it's ideal for painting sore, painful boils on the skin of the followers of Nurgle. With those boils painted, now it's time to paint the metallics. With some broadsword silver, I'm catching the head to the mace, being careful not to paint over the handle at all. I'm also catching the metal parts to the rim of the shield, being careful to not paint over the wood. This metallic speed paint works really well at adding definition and highlights, and works in a single coat, which a lot of metallic paints can struggle with. With the steel details painted, the final thing to paint are all of the gold details, and for this I'm using Hoplite Gold. And I'm painting all of the gold jewellery, like the plate over the eyes, and any of the trinkets hanging from the clothing. These models do have quite a lot of gold details on them, so I'm making sure that I paint all of the trinkets with gold. This gold is quite bright and doesn't look very nurgly, but in the next step I'm going to darken it down a bit, and then add some weathering, so it will really look like it's old and ruined and belongs to Nurgle. I'm also catching the details on the shield, being careful to not paint over the wood, but making sure I catch all of these trinkets with some Hoplite Gold. You can see how that gold now is a little bit too bright. So with some Reikland Flesh Shade, I'm going to shade all over. This shade will darken down the gold a bit, but also leave it with a really deep colour at the end. I want to make sure that I shade this over all of the gold details, but I don't want to apply too much so it pools. If I do notice any pooling, I'll wick some of the shade away with a dry brush, so it just leaves a small layer of shade all over the gold. And once that shade has dried, you can see how it's made that gold darker and given a rich colour. And now with Lilac Oxide, I'm going to apply some verdigris. With this, I'm stippling on small spots of Lilac Oxide onto the gold areas. This will give the impression of some verdigris forming on areas that haven't been looked after in a long time. As always with weathering, less is more. It's best to stipple on small areas of this paint, and if you think the model could do with more, then come back to the model and paint some more on after. I'm applying this to all of the gold, just adding small spots to give the impression of old, dirty armour and trinkets on the model. And with the verdigris applied, there is just one more paint left to add, and that's some dirty down rust, which I'm adding small patches to all of the details I painted with broadsword silver. This paint does a really great effect of giving a rust-like finish. Just a few spots here and there on the model is all you need to get a great looking dirty weathered model. And with the rust applied, that is how to really quickly and easily paint a Pox Wrench for Warhammer Quest Darkwater. Please let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of these models? And what would you like to see me take on from the Darkwater set next? Thank you very much for watching. As always, please don't forget to like and subscribe to see me painting the rest of this box set. And happy painting!